Hello again. Like many of our partners, the district had a cybersecurity scare last year. And today we'd like you to learn from our misfortune and share what we may all do to protect each other. And it's my delight to welcome the district's IT director, Chad Kudym, to the podium.
All right, thank you. That was Montana Moore. I think she forgot to introduce herself. She's one of our great interns in the GIS program. It's one of the things that the district I really appreciate is the intern program, and I know a lot of you come from that, and so Montana's been a great addition to our team. You're probably wondering, what the heck is cybersecurity doing on the agenda for this engineering and construction meeting? But there's stories from around the community. It really is a partnership. If we protect ourselves, we're also protecting our partners. And so that's really what we want to be able to accomplish. And so we'll go through a few examples here today to give you some more information regarding that. Okay. So cybersecurity really is personal. I mean, if you talk to someone that's been a victim of cyber fraud, they feel very vulnerable. They don't know how the heck it happened to them. You're going about trying to be very customer service oriented, and you forget to do some things that are pretty critical, really, when it comes down to it. And so I want to go through a few stories today to share, to hopefully help everyone just be a little more aware and understand how this is also part of our partnership. So the first story, it's a new employee. Picture yourself in the shoes of someone that's really excited about a new job. The place they've wanted to work for a long time, get a text that's claiming to be from your boss, CEO, director, mayor, whatever it might be in your organization, and it's asking for a favor. Hey, I'm sitting in a meeting. I really need you to do something for me quick. Could you go out and buy some gift cards? It could be something else, could be buying something online, and they claim you can expense it, no big deal, and we'll take care of it for you. So in this case, you go along with it for a few text messages, and then you realize, wait a minute, this seems kind of odd, and you start processing these things. And that's really what we're asking for, is step back, take a minute. I know we're all busy and very customer service focused, but just with some of these things, taking the time to understand what the threat might be here, seeming that it's just out of line, and check in with somebody else to see if that's really something that would happen. So we move on to the next scenario. In this case, put yourself in the shoes of an accounts payable clerk. It's coming up on the 4th of July weekend. Your boss is on vacation. Some of the other key personnel that you might reach out to are also on vacation. You want to make sure and get the invoices paid so that all your partners get the vendor paychecks that go out in the next few weeks. And so in this scenario, you get an email. It's actually on an existing email thread, so your guard is down. This is from a trusted source that I can rely on, and they're saying, hey, this invoice we sent you, we're having some issues with our bank account. We'd really appreciate it if you could let us know what we need to do to change the account number so that we can get that payment, but we just need it in a different bank account. So you follow up, you send a PDF document that represents the change request that has the new account information. They send it back. Follow up with a nice phone call, cordial conversation, talking about whether they got all the information you needed in, and now you get on, you make that request, you process the rest of the invoices, only to find out a few weeks later that was actually somebody impersonating one of your trusted vendors. Their email account had been hacked, and the guard was down. You're trying to be that customer service focused. So these are some of the situations, and that was actually happened to the district last year. And so we want to share, not just lessons learned on projects, but cybersecurity as well. We were fortunate enough that this one ended up the money come back to us, but it's a great learning opportunity to know that these things happen, and because the vendor's account was compromised, that let our guard down. And that's the kinds of things that, with partnership, to make sure that we all have the right cybersecurity, we can minimize these kinds of things. So the last story, you're an IT director, middle of the night, fast asleep, all of a sudden your dog starts barking like crazy. You think maybe you heard the doorbell. You go downstairs and find out that it's somebody, a police officer from your jurisdiction with one of your IT employees. They're telling you, you think there's a ransomware incident. They've started shutting down machines all over the city. And so you quickly rush to the office, spend all night trying to figure out what's going on. By morning, you're talking to the FBI and your local authorities about what's happening. You spend the next couple weeks trying to help get your employees back online so your critical systems are down. I mean, just think of the pressure that you're under to be able to get back online after this kind of incident occurs. This is the worst nightmare in a lot of cases that you can think of when it comes to ransomware and some of the cybersecurity things. So again, just want to share some of these stories. These things happen within our community, and we want to help each other share these stories and talk about how to prevent them from happening again. And as I mentioned, these social engineering attacks become so much more functional because they're taking over what they call business email compromise. You're into somebody's email account. You can do research, understand how that person communicates. You can see existing threads that you can piggyback on and make requests, and people aren't really going to question it. And so unfortunately, technology helps us do a lot of good things, but in this case, they're also using it against us. And so we just need to step back and take a little bit of time. And so we'll go through a few of those things. So what can you do? One of the things, and I think this probably more so to some of our smaller businesses that we work with, and that was the case on this business email compromise where somebody got into their system, they were able to take it over. So particularly if you're in a smaller organization that doesn't have a lot of formal IT, ask your management what you're doing in terms of IT best practices. Good example, pro tip on here is if your admin person is also your administrator of your email accounts, for example, that means that person's login has access to set rules and do all kinds of other things that could allow them to take over. And so we actually saw two instances of this. One of them was the one we talked about that we've publicized and said, we fell victim to this attempt. In the second instance, we saw what was happening, and Mahesh, who's our IT consultant that works with us, he and I reached out to that organization and actually have a screenshot to show some of the rules that they set up inside of their email as a result of that person having these main credentials. So if you're that kind of organization where you don't have a designated IT person really doing it, make sure that you have an email account that's completely separate, that's not used every day to do some of those administrative tasks. And then the other things are, use this zero trust concept. It really says our network is really always susceptible to internal and external threats. And so therefore we need to ask ourselves, is this from somebody I trust? Is it asking for something unusual? Is it trying to create a false sense of urgency? Can I reach out to a different contact mechanism, send them a text message or give them a call, Teams, whatever it is, reach out to that person in a different method outside of that email string and see if you can validate what's being asked. And these, just a couple quick examples, probably hard to see, but the first one is showing some of those rules. In this case, when they were successful, they set up a rule that said anything that comes from @mhfd.org, mark it as read, move it to an archive folder, and it just disappears. This person's was using their email. They thought everything was completely normal until they heard from us saying, hey, this is a scenario, this is what happened. We got in and found out that while they were using their email account, it was also being hacked at the same time and mined for information to be able to reach out to other vendors, other partners, and ask them, change accounts. So imagine if you have invoices out there and somebody starts blasting all of your clients saying, hey, we want to change our bank account number to this, and seeing how many of them fall for it. And then it's between you and that client to try to decide how do you try to recoup that funding. The second one is an example took from last week. This is just an easy domain search you can do to see if organizations have their domain name registration set up to prevent some of the spoofing, impersonate your email. And this is one of our actual vendors from last week, showing you can do this quick search and all those red dots indicate that there's 4 different easy cybersecurity measures they can take that haven't been taken yet. So please reach out to myself, reach out to you if you have a designated IT representative or organization that you work with. We're happy to talk about these things. We really want to help everybody increase the level of protection And by doing so, we're going to all help each other. And just a couple things in closing. Tell stories. I've been just talking with some people today. I know we've had a couple examples of people I've talked to where there's also voicemail or the vishing type scams where they call up and say your kids or your grandkids or something, they have them, they want ransom for that or something. So there's all kinds of different schemes out there, and so all of them really come down to trying to step back, take away the emotion that they're trying to harness, and just make sure that you're keeping yourself safe. And lastly, there's things like updating iOS on your phone. Right now there's an active threat for Apple devices, and the way you can mitigate that is just making sure that you're applying those updates on a regular basis. So with that, I appreciate the time, and again, please reach out to myself or someone in the IT community to help with some of these basic measures to help protect each other. Thank you.